And the mission today is for you to convince me that I'm not crazy. It's going to take a little bit of work, but I think we can get there. I'm going to describe the next mobile games platform that within the next year or two, people will be developing games for, and no one's developing games for it right now. So before I get into that, I want to tell a story that I think will help illustrate my point. In July of 2008, I was sitting at a Microsoft cafeteria. Now, I wasn't there for the food, although I'm sure Windows Vista flavored noodles are very delicious. I brought my own lunch, but I was there because I was on the Xbox team. And I was waiting for my friends to join me at the table. I had reserved a table to make sure nobody took it. And they were waiting to pay in line. And while they did that, I did what you can expect to do when you're passing time. I played a game on my iPhone. Now, the game that I was playing was actually a game called Super Monkey Ball. Has anybody played this game? Does anybody know it? So this is a weird fact for me to remember, right? The exact game that I was playing at lunch almost 10 years ago. But there are two reasons why I remember this detail. The first reason is this was July of 2008. A month before, there was no such thing as playing a game on an iPhone. So literally June of 2008, nobody in the world outside of maybe a few developers and folks in Cupertino were playing games on an iPhone, and here I was playing it. So that was one reason that I remembered it. The second reason is that as soon as my friends got to the table, they made fun of me mercilessly for playing a game on a phone. So this game actually represented 10% of the revenue for the first month in the App Store, right? So for the standard of the time, it was a huge game. But to my friends, my coworkers who were working at Xbox, it wasn't a real game. The idea was, for them, we worked on real games. You know, we worked on Halo, we worked on Gears of War, and a game on a phone was not something that people would do. That was their expectation. And I defended it. I said, you don't understand. It's got unique mechanics. You can actually use the phone's accelerometer to control it. And they didn't care. Now we're 10 years later, and there are Halo games on iPhone, right? We're 10 years later, and the industry shifted. The mobile games are now a huge market, and they've overtaken console games almost everywhere in the world. So we're in 2008 all over again. And you have a chance to be my coworkers, and you're going to make fun of me when I tell you what this idea is. You're going to maybe give me a cynical look, you might laugh, but within 15 minutes after I show you what several large companies are doing, I think you will believe. And when you're done believing, I will describe for you what you can do today, because the future is science fiction unless you can take action on it, unless there's something you can do. So that's what I want to describe. So the next platform is, there are currently 1 billion units installed all over the world right now. These are legacy units. They don't play games, but they're installed in places all over the world. Right now, people spend almost 30 billion hours a year just in the US on this device. And average globally is about 5.5 hours every single week are spent with this device. Some of you may be guessing what it is. I'm talking about cars, autonomous cars in particular. Now, it may not be this exact model, and this model can't play games today, but in the next year, you're going to see cars that can. And I'm hoping that I can inspire you to take action on it. Now, the question you may ask is, why do I care? Why does this matter to me? Over the last 2 years, I've been working for this company, Akamai. It's actually really lucky that it's all over the stage, so I can point to it. I've been working for Akamai, traveling the world, talking mostly to game developers and publishers and some entertainment companies as well. But I also get a chance to meet with auto manufacturers, heavy industry companies, financial services companies, e-commerce companies. And I get to see some really exciting technology, things that our customers are working on, and I can see the pieces coming together. Now, we get access to a lot of inside information about what companies are working on, but everything I'm going to show you is public. It's already been made publicly available. most of these companies are our customers, but these aren't secrets. It's just that no one's really paying attention yet. But in order to tell the story, I want to play a little game. We're going to try to guess the logo. This is a little bit of a guess the logo game. There will be 6 logos, and I will show you what each of these companies is doing that will make this future real. Does anybody know who this company is? I've obscured. I'll give you a hint. This is a company that's not based in Silicon Valley, but they've recently opened a major facility for research and development there. They're based in Detroit or Michigan. This is, yeah, GM. So General Motors attended the DICE conference in Vegas, which is a games conference, and they were there because they had just launched a research and development facility in Silicon Valley where they're hiring computer scientists, they're hiring UX designers, and their mission is to develop infotainment systems and gamification for cars. For smart cars, for cars that are very quickly becoming autonomous, they're developing this technology right now. It's a major investment for them. Does anybody recognize this logo? There's probably some people who own this. This is Tesla. Yeah, so Tesla, most people know, obviously, that they're working on autonomous cars. I think one of the exciting things that Tesla's doing right now is they're developing car-to-car networks. So their autonomous vehicles rely on cameras, they rely on sonar, but they believe, and we believe with them as well, that car-to-car information, car-to-car networking is going to be one of the ways that you can improve autonomous driving. But imagine what all of these connected cars could also do in terms of entertainment, in terms of games. So this is a major investment for them. We've been talking to them for a while on some of the very basic uses of the network, which is just to update the firmware in the car. You know, it's interesting, this model that we're already in now where you can actually buy apps in the cars now. The car that I own lets me buy apps, and you can upgrade the software. So we're moving there. Anybody know these 2 logos? You must know. Volvo and Microsoft, yeah. So Volvo and Microsoft they announced this 2 years ago. They are currently working on a partnership with their HoloLens, with Microsoft's HoloLens device, to use AR for multiple phases of the value chain for Volvo, including research and development, including crash testing using AR instead of real cars, and featuring the HoloLens on showroom floors so that customers can go in and get a feel for what their new car might be like. So HoloLens, which has been heavily promoted as a gaming technology, is also, of course, a heavy industry technology, is merging with the auto industry, right? There's a lot of work going on here. And I think some of the next examples are even more stunning. This company, this sideways smile, you might recognize? Yeah, DNA. Now, most of you will know DNA as a games publisher. They publish mobile games primarily, but they've published games on other platforms as well. Does anybody know why I've included them in this? They've just, well, not just, they have had an autonomous bus in market for over a year. So they have buses riding around Chiba right now with no driver, and it's currently limited to a shopping center where the roads are easier to control, so it's not necessarily being tested out in public roads. But part of what DNA has said is that they see this bus as an opportunity to provide entertainment experiences to the people that are riding inside. This is a games company. The only thing DNA was known for before they did this was game development, game publishing. And they have now built an autonomous vehicle that they see as a potential entertainment platform. You should recognize the top logo here. Is anybody? Alibaba, yeah. So Alibaba and Magic Leap. For those of you who don't know Magic Leap, I probably should. Magic Leap is a company that some people love, some people are skeptical of. They are a company that is developing AR technology that interfaces with the space around you so that the AR experience can feel more real. So the idea is that it's spatially aware and it can simulate experiences in a way that other AR doesn't do. Alibaba just led an $800 million investment round in Magic Leap. And Alibaba just recently showcased their smart car, their autonomous car roadmap their plan for using the auto as a connected device. What their CEO said, actually, is that the car represents a new opportunity to be fully connected, to be internet-enabled in a way that hasn't been done before. So you can start to see the picture coming together, the investments from major companies in multiple industries that is not just going to make it possible, it's going to make it unavoidable that cars will represent an opportunity. Now, you may think, it's fair for you to think that I'm crazy. It's fair for you maybe to think some of these companies are crazy, but if you believe that Tesla and Volvo and Microsoft and Intel and Delphi, if you believe they're all crazy, I want to lay out some of the logic for why this could be a really good platform. So these are 4 points. The first point I want to make is related to how so in a lot of ways, I think the auto platform is going to be related to AR and VR, the way that we think of AR and VR now. If you think about it, a car is almost the perfect, there are all these people who were against the rules playing Pokemon Go while they drove so that they could quickly get to other locations. This could be a natural embedded experience. How many folks have Vives or Oculus Rift? Is anybody? Very few. So one of the interesting challenges of VR is that you can't predict the space that the player is playing in. And this was a problem we had at Microsoft with the Kinect. Every living room is different. Every sofa is different. Some people have a window on this side. Some people have a window on the other side. And there's all kinds of spatial differences that create a challenge. A car, so as an example, the Toyota Corolla sold 1.5 million units last year. That's 1.5 million identical play spaces where the user and the device and the relationship between them is the same basically for every single one of those. It's a uniform play space in a way that we really don't have in augmented reality. The other thing is all that glass. So the average large screen TV has about half a square meter of glass. The average car has 4 square meters of glass, which, when the driver no longer needs to look out of that glass to pay attention to what's going on, is going to represent an opportunity for display and for interaction. The other thing, a lot of people believe that, so I was talking to DNA about this about a year ago, and their immediate response to this was everybody's going to throw up, everybody's going to get nauseous if they're trying to play a game in the car. But what's interesting about motion and the role that motion plays in motion sickness is that the real problem with VR is the difference between what you see with your eyes and what your body feels. But with an automobile, there's an opportunity to have the action that's perceived and felt to be the same, for them to be together. Somebody described it, it could be the world's largest rumble controller and the world's largest motion sensing controller. And the last thing I think that makes this logical is the money. So if you think about the cost of the average mobile phone or the cost of the average console or PC, and then you compare it to the cost of the average car, the opportunity to embed technology into a car is, I mean, it would be trivial to upgrade the car in such a way that would allow it to have the latest and greatest features in a way that's really not the same for PC. So I think I've made a clear case for why this is coming and how it's coming, but the question that comes up often is, okay, so what do I do about this now? So Nelson, you say the car is being able to play games in a car is going to happen in, what, a year, 2 years? Well, what do I do about that today? And I think I just like looking up crazy images and putting them up on the screen. But I think that there's an opportunity to get investment now. There's an opportunity to take action now where you can start planning the kind of experience that you think might be good and where the money might actually be closer than you think. And this slide, I think, is going to help you with that. This is a representation of companies that are all investing in autonomous cars. All of these companies are heavily investing in developing the technology to make autonomous driving possible. And what's interesting when you look at this is that many of these companies are also currently invested in AR, currently invested in VR, and are currently spending money on content. So I was at a VC summit about a month and a half ago where there was a group of investors focused on VR, gaming, and a group of CEOs who were developing VR experiences. And we were trying to basically discuss what the business model for VR is. Now, once there was a scary fact that emerged, which is that most companies aren't making money on VR right now, but there's hundreds of millions of dollars being spent by hardware makers to invest in content. So hardware makers consistently invest in the development of content, which means that right now there are within these companies people thinking about that plan. So Intel is paying for VR content. Microsoft is paying for AR content. And there are, I would bet every single company up here has someone presently, and some of them might be in this building, and if they're not here, they're going to be at DICE or at GDC, they're going to be at China Joy. They're thinking about how to make their platform the platform. And they're thinking about how to get developers and publishers onto their platform in a year, in 2 years. So if you think about the timeline of how long it would take you to develop a game and how long it would take you to find financing, the timeline's not that different. It's not that different for you to spend a couple months thinking about what could be unique about this platform and then to spend another couple months making these connections. So look at this list, take a photo of it. The video will be available of this talk later, and see who in your network works at one of these companies to see if you can find your route there. They're not going to publicly say it just yet, right? This has not been announced at any of these companies, but it exists. And all I want is when this happens, when you launch your game, when your game is the first game on the Tesla, just put my name somewhere secretly in the credits, or maybe name a character after me, and that'll make me feel good. I really appreciate your time. I would love to take questions and dive in. Yeah.
So I can totally imagine. I'm Rahil. I'm from the Games Home Studios. We are developing and publishing games for since 2009. Yeah. And I can imagine in 2009 we were publishing on SlideMe, not on Google Play, but SlideMe was more popular than Google Play. And I can totally agree with you. You're not crazy.
I'm not crazy. All right.
You're right. You're right. Because at that time people think we were crazy developing and publishing something on SlideMe. But anyways, the thing is how it's going to happen. I can assure that my company was the first to try any out of these platforms. But how is it going to happen? I mean, every brand will be having every big brand will be having their own platform, own store, or will they be coming up with Google Play or Apple, or will they be having their own SDKs and stuff? And how about the security? What do you think? I mean, isn't it dangerous that people are playing a game while driving a car? So
yeah, those are all interesting questions, and as you can imagine, I've had a lot of discussion about this all over the world. So I think, there's a couple questions there, right? One is, how is it going to happen, particularly with the fact that many makers are going to have their own platform? And then the second question is safety.
Exactly.
The safety, yeah. I'll answer the safety question first. Someone actually brought up the fact that maybe this could just be done with mobile phones. That maybe, why don't people just develop the games on mobile phones that use the accelerometer in a way? And I actually think that would be the worst from a safety point of view, because then you can't guarantee that the car is driving itself, right? If you can play a game on a phone, the mobile phone is in and of itself a risk to driving. So I think safety is the smallest concern once autonomy is solved, which is happening right now. So once the autonomous car is fully in market, which is everybody's aggressively driving to over the next 2 years, I think you'll see it be widespread. But before that happens, when the first reasonably good autonomous
you mean fully self-driven cars?
The what?
Yeah, like fully self-driven cars.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think safety is the least concern. In terms of platforms, what's going to happen is you see what's happening now with Android and Apple Car. Or I forget what it's called. So in my car, I have both. In my car, I have all three. I can use Honda's default entertainment system. I can use Apple's if I plug in my Apple phone, and I can use Google's if I plug in an Android phone. And there are 3 options, which is not perfect for end users, but that's the current model. Mm-hmm. What you're going to see is Delphi's going to have one, and GM's going to have one, and Tesla's going to have one. And eventually what will emerge are a couple of leaders, right? 2 or 3 leaders will emerge. I would bet big on the Googles and the Apples of the world to play a role in that space. But having said that, there's an opportunity for investment from any of the players before. You don't have to be with the winner in order to get ahead, right? In order to have an opportunity to have your game featured early.
So is it going to be a new store? In that case, there will be a new store specifically for cars.
I think they'll have to be in the same way that there's like the VR stores, right? There's the gear, there's Samsung's store for VR. That's a curated store that tries to create a specific experience. You will have another section of the Android store, or the Google Play Store. You'll have another section, and I know Google was here. They might disagree with me, but I'm sure there will be multiple versions. But at the end of the day, there will be a couple of storefronts or a couple of systems that succeed.
Because in that case, the monetization will be the same.
Right.
They won't have to invent anything new about monetization and obviously acquisition.
Yeah, I didn't catch that
acquisition
last part.
And
user
acquisition.
acquisition.
Yes,
yeah, right. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nelson Rodriguez.
Thank you.